What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight up top badasses out there dominating their space. These are people that are not accepting a life of mediocrity, but instead choosing to go out there and create epic lives for themselves and for their families. So today, you guys got one of my good friends on, one of my homeboys. He's actually a repeat guest on the show. We had him on about a year or so ago, and this is a dude that I got connected with about 2 years ago. And this dude's just an amazing cat, very, very smart. He's probably the best networker that I've ever met. You know, like if you want to get in the right rooms, if you want to develop relationships with high net worth individuals, there's nobody better in this space than him. We actually just shared a stage together, which was a huge honor. Just shared a stage together in Scottsdale, there's only like 500 agents. So really stoked on it. I have Christopher Kai on the show. Welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, Josh Smith?
Yeah, no,
Great
it's
to be
awesome,
back.
dude. It's awesome to have you back, dude. I know, we're always staying in touch, and you're always doing massive, massive things. And yeah, we might be back on the show last week, man. We had a stage that we shared together. It was like 500 realtors that came out, and your speech not only blew me away, it blew a ton of the audience away. And wanted to have you on because the first shot, I guess, or the first podcast, if you will, we talked a lot about your backstory. And the speech that you gave was a lot more tactical strategy. I'm like, dude, we got to share what you just shared there with our audience, man. So really stoked to have you back on, bro.
Yeah, I mean, so the speech was really about the art and science of building these strong relationships, and I just broke it down into 7 specific steps. And the first one is really, we all know that networking is important, but did we know that it's based on science? There's a guy named Ron Burt. He actually studies networking science, if you can believe that, right? And he found that, primarily we have 2 types of mindsets. We oftentimes stay in our clusters of influence, meaning let's say, I only hang out in Beverly Hills, or I only hang out with my own ethnicity, or I only hang out with my own colleagues if I'm a realtor, which I'm not. But I'm just saying is we have these clusters. But what he found with network science is that you have to branch out and meet other people. So if I'm, let's say, Christian, I got to meet Muslims. If I'm Muslim, I got to meet Jewish people. If I'm Jewish people, I have to meet atheists, because once you have a much wider open network, the opportunities are endless. And even how we met, right? We're in this online group called the COG. Our mutual friend Jay connected us together. This young man named Oscar from Sweden. I hope, Oscar, you're listening, because Oscar actually would watch our past podcasts over and over and over. So Oscar, I'll give you a shout out. Oscar reaches out to me. He's like, dude, I love your energy. I love your vibe. I love your message. Can you mentor me? I'm like, look, Oscar, man, I'm building out my business. I'm traveling all around the world. I don't have time. But he kept persisting. And I'm like, all right, dude, you want me to mentor you? Well, pay your own way. I want you to help me find potential clients, speaking clients, and reach out to people like you, Josh. And he did. He reaches out to you. That's how we connected. So let me recap the story, right? A guy from Sweden who does not look like me, who doesn't live in the same area code, not even area code, but like country, not my age group, but he's an outside network, open network, reaches out to you in Arizona, and here I am in LA. So we have 3 different locations, 3 different types of people, and yet we were connected together. Now, how this relates to realtors, right? Imagine if a realtor comes up to me and says, hey, Chris, I want to help you buy a home in Beverly Hills. That's where you live. I'm like, yes. So fine, he maybe tells me, or she tells me, oh, this is a great title person, this is a great mortgage person. But what if this person actually said, well, here's also a great accountant in the area, Chris. Here's a doctor, here's a chiropractor, oh, by the way, here's a masseuse, and here's a great restaurant. So how much more value would you bring if you had all these various open networks, and as opposed to just, oh yeah, I know it's a great house, here is a mortgage broker, but if you gave all these open networks of actual references, I mean, how much more powerful would that be? And how much more successful would you be if you had that open mindset mentality, that open network mentality, I should say?
Yeah, no, I love that, dude. And just to talk about the gentleman that connected with us, Oscar. One of the cool thing about Oscar is, he's this like 21-year-old cat. I'm not sure if he's 21 or not. I think he is. Young dude anyway in Sweden. He takes his time to reach out. So like I get hit up, and I know you get hit up all the time too, Chris, almost daily of, oh, dude, talk to this guy, do this, or hey, can I buy you lunch? But no, dude, we're busy as fuck. We don't have time, But he was very strategic of, you could tell that he was a fan. Very strategic of, hey, you guys need to connect. Here's exactly why. I'm a big fan of the show. Here's exactly why you guys need to connect. So when you're reaching out to people, you got to be very, very strategic. Do your homework. Because if you do your homework, I think, as we're reaching up for mentors and friends and people that we're trying to connect with, they'll listen.
Yeah, the homework is exactly right, Josh. I mean, even before when he reached out to me, I'm like, who is this guy, right? So I reached out to Jay, our mutual friend, and Jay said the guy's legit, young guy, ambitious guy, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll give him a chance. And he's just a very hungry guy, and he also has a good heart. Like this dude, this is like the Oscar show now, right? But this dude literally would walk up and knock on the doors of mansions in Sweden and ask them to be mentored, right? Who has the balls? Who has the gut to do that, right? So whenever in life, I always talk about when people ask me, Chris, what's the one quality you most need to succeed? And I say, it's not confidence, it's not intelligence, it's not even about your network, it's about courage. If you have the ability to knock on a door, knowing that that person might slam that door in your face, might look at you weird, might curse at you, might spit at you, whatever, that's the courage that you'll need to pursue your dreams.
Yeah, I love it, man. And, I was just before earlier today, I had a podcast with somebody I've always looked up to and called a mentor. Actually, the author of this book, you might know him. He's in LA. Ryan Blair. His company does $2 billion a year in revenue. So I'm talking to him. He's like, dude, last time he calculated his time, it was worth over $30,000 an hour. So this guy isn't a guy that you can call up and just be like, hey, dude, you want a cup of coffee? Right? But one thing that you always talk about and preach, Chris, is all these uber successful people are always massive givers. So he's like, look, if somebody came to me and said, hey, I will, for an hour of your time, I'll devote 10 hours of my time to whatever charity you want me to devote them to. He's like, dude, I'll give you an hour of my time. Even though my time's worth 30 grand an hour, worth way more than 10 hours of your time, right? He'd give that time. So, and that's one thing I love about you, what you always talk about is looking for different angles to get involved and give back and, to get those mentors.
Yeah, let's talk about Ryan. That phrase, birds of a feather flock together. I was on a radio show for UCI, the University of California in Irvine, a few months ago, and the guy on the show that shared the stage with me, or shared the interview with me, his name's Ash. He has an event, and guess what? Surprise, surprise, Ryan Blair is going to be there, right? So once you start being in the mix, when you start talking about Ryan Blair, or let's say John, our mutual friend and your mentor, mentioned that he's going to be a mastermind in LA, and I'm like, that guy Chris Stoiko sounds familiar. He created this Dollar Beard Club. He made $8 million within 8 months. And I'm like, it came up again in passing, and I'm like, dude, I checked my phone. I've actually met this guy last year. So when you start building up this massive network, going back to what you're saying, let's give these callers and these listeners a very specific tactical way, right? You and I get approached all the time, Josh. Well, you and I are business people, right? So if let's say they want to reach out to Ryan Blair, and Ryan is promoting his book, I have a contact to the Inc. Radio, which I referred you to, right? So it's kind of like, well, Ryan Blair wants to promote his book. I have this Inc. contact radio for him. I'll pass it off to him. So now I just added value. And for the people on the call, now you have me as access and Josh. And as you know, Josh, I forwarded you along to them too. But it's always about how can I give? Because whether they're a millionaire, multimillionaire, billionaire, they still want something. But don't just ask, hey, can I borrow 5 minutes of your time? Or, hey, I got this amazing idea. Like, yeah, we've heard that before. Elon Musk, he doesn't just charge 30 grand an hour. He probably charges 300 or 3 million or $30 million, right? So how do you get to him, right? I got him to come to the worst part of town, but it's because I was the only person that can approach him on that level with nonprofit. So you have to be very strategic, and the more successful a person is, at least in terms of how busy they are, the more succinct and specific your story has to be.
Yep. Love it, man. So, okay, so you kind of talked about part one, right? So, and you've covered 7 steps. So, let's just keep rolling with it, man.
Yeah. So part 2 is like the mindset. There's a woman named Dr. Carol Dweck, and she talked about a book called Mindset, the new science of psychology, the new success of psychology. And she really broke it down into 2 very specific things based on 20 years of research. She's like, you know what? You have either a fixed mindset or growth mindset. Fixed mindset is, Josh, man, I grew up in New York and I had a reading disability. I was really short. I got teased. That's a fixed mindset, meaning I'm not going to get anywhere because I was teased, bullied, and ridiculed. Growth mindset is, you know what? Though I'm short, maybe I'll get taller one day. Though I'm not smart academically, maybe I'm smart on the streets. Maybe I'm smart as a salesperson. So it's so basic, but too many of us say, oh, Chris, I don't have enough time. I'm not pretty enough. And someone actually from the conference last week, Josh, she literally told me, she's always been considered the dumb blonde girl. And she's like a grown woman, and she still has that stigma, that scar. So when she heard me speak about the fixed mindset, which people labeled her, and I said growth mindset is so what if you're blind? It doesn't matter. They perceived you as that, but your growth mindset is know why you're presenting yourself in a confident manner, regardless of how people labeled you, right? So anyone on this podcast, just remember, stop whining about what you don't have and having that fixed mindset. And to give you a very specific example, right? If you're like driving along traffic and all you do, you whine about, oh my God, this person cut me off, you're having that fixed mindset, and then 9 p.m. at night, you're still talking about it and whining about it, right? And for the people on the podcast, shame on you if you're that fixed mindset person. So focus on the growth mindset, meaning figure out how you can learn more, figure out how you can grow more, and like hanging out with you, Josh, like you're a monster when it comes to the online world, so I want to learn from you. If let's say you want to publish a book one time, you can say, oh, Chris, I don't know what to do. Well, I can show you that growth mindset, right? So keep things very simple. Are you focusing on a fixed mindset where you're being negative, cynical, and just like not willing to grow? Or growth mindset is, you know what, I can do this. It's not about I don't have time. It's about, well, what are my priorities and how can I prioritize my day so that I can do what's most important now? If you want to grow your real estate business, well, how many, not just calls are you making, but how many qualified calls and how many events are you going to that has the highest probability of your success?
Yep, love it, man. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, man. There's so many limited beliefs out there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, man. And then number 3, it's like, well, how do you communicate better? And ultimately, you have like the words we use, the tone of voice, and the body language. But then there's another aspect where you have ethos, pathos, and logos. And essentially, like ethos is about our credibility. I can tell you, Josh, yeah, I've written 3 books. I've given 1,000 speeches. I have a #1 bestseller on Amazon. Those are the credibility, which is cool. But what's more important, 20% is more about facts and figures. Like for instance, Carol Dweck has a research-based book about mindset. This Forbes article talked about the open network. So you're creating the factual statistics, empirical evidence that people understand that there's credibility. And then lastly, 65% is pathos. And this is based on a guy named Carmine Gallo. As you know, Josh, I'm always feeding my mind with knowledge. He wrote a book called Talk Like Ted. And he talked about how the most inspiring speakers on the most global stage in the world, TED conference every year, was that he had these stories, this emotional appeal. And so 65% is that pathos, that emotional appeal. 25% is the actual logos, the facts and figures. And only 10% is the credibility. So, okay, great. People that are in real estate for X amount of years, great. But 90% of your effectiveness is really about the story you share, the emotional appeal, and the facts and figures by the industry, because it allows a person to know your credibility. That's kind of like the number 3 point.
Yeah, no, I like it, man. I like one, and I know you went deeper in the speech that you gave, and a lot of it was, you were giving examples of telling your story of even like how you came up with not you came up with your name, but about your name, and just going deeper with that. And I think that's, people today are starving for authenticity. Right? They're starving for that genuine, and we'll just keep using real estate because half our listeners are in the real estate space. But dude, like everybody looks at a realtor as this like stuffy, blah blah blah, this used car salesman, type person. But if you're getting out there and you're always just being genuine, sharing your story, it becomes a whole different connection level. Yeah,
and let's talk about story, right? I'll end with that too. But I also talked about how when I meet people, they always ask me, hey, what should I say? And I'm like, instead of asking what should I say or like what do you do for a living, just ask them, who's the one person you most enjoy spending your time with? Who's the one person you most enjoy spending your time with? It shifts the actual response, and now you're about them, now you're about their interests. So imagine if they say, you know what, my 6-year-old daughter loves to swim. Now you already know, well, you better find a house that has a beautiful swimming pool, or, my 6-year-old daughter loves to play tennis. And so what the cool thing about asking that qualifying question is, not only are you standing out from the rest when someone asks you, what do you do? You're also qualifying this actual client and understanding what they most need, who they most need it for, and what their interests are, right? And this goes beyond my opinion. It talks about what I talk about, four happy chemicals. The four happy chemicals are when you focus on their interests and relationships, you have dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and serotonin. These four things, when I talk to you, Josh, like, you always like amped up about talking about your kids and your wife. So your physiology is changing. So when people talk about someone's interests and relationships, forget about what you want to say. Talk about what they want to say, what their interests are, what their relationships are, because it'll be exponentially more powerful. And they won't even know. Like, I have people all the time, it's like, man, Chris, I don't know why I'm sharing this with you. It's because I'm listening to them, not me. It's not about me. It's about them.
Yeah, I love it. So often we get so caught up in. I think a lot of these people have a difficult time spinning in the now. Like when we ask a question, sometimes we're so often thinking about what are we gonna like, how are we gonna rebuttal, what are we gonna say back, that we're really not being focused on what they're saying and be interested in them. And I know it's an old book, but it's a classic, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in my opinion, one of the best business books that's ever written. And goes so deep on, dude, you want great relationships, be interested in people. Don't try to be interesting, be interested in others.
Yeah. No, you're right. And when people ask me about my book, they're like, hey, what's your book about, Chris? I said, well, have you heard of that book, as you said, Josh, How to Win Friends and Influence People? They're like, yeah, by Dale Carnegie, one of the best books in the world. Well, I said, well, my book's about how to win friends with influential people.
Yeah.
You know? And again, if you want to meet at a higher level, at least from a financial success standpoint, you have to be really specific about listening. And there's a character, actually, a Chinese character. It's called what like Ting. Ting is the Chinese character. And the beauty of the Chinese language, it's not just one character, as I was saying in the speech last week. It's like Tetris. You have different blocks of characters, and once you put it together, it becomes a different meaning. And so in the character for listen in Chinese, like on the top left-hand side, you have the character for ears. But on the top right-hand side, you have the character for you. Right below that, it's eyes. Right below that is one, undivided attention. And right below that is heart. So if you literally listen to someone, not checking your smartphone, not checking your iPad, not checking your laptop, and you're listening with your ears, your eyes, and most important, your heart. Because, when you talk to people, Josh, you ask them, well, how are you doing? And they're like, fine. But even them saying fine, there's something underneath that, right? So let's say I flew into Phoenix last week, and I shared this story about how I need to get my shoes shined. And I saw this gentleman getting his shoes shined. The whole time he wasn't talking to the person shining his shoes, right? The guy leaves with a smartphone in hand. I sit down. I asked this woman, her name is Amina, because I looked at her name tag, not too hard to even find out their name, right? I said, hey, Amina, tell me a story. And she's like, God, I don't have any stories. I don't have any stories. But me being a persistent man as I am, I'm like, no, Amina, please share me a story. And as soon as I asked her, share me a story again, she said, I only have sad stories, Chris. And just based on how she said that, I only have sad stories, Chris. From there, I just learned her whole history about growing up in Ethiopia and that to go farming there and that she has family there still. So what I'm saying is when you listen, not just with your ears, if I just listen with my ears, it's like, okay, great. She has a sad story, big deal. But I listen with my eyes, looking at her mannerisms, her posture, her tone of voice, most importantly, my heart. You can tell she has a massive weight on her shoulders. And how many people spend the time to talk to a shoe shiner at an airport? How many of us, like that guy, was on his phone, didn't even talk to her one moment, not even one statement or even a word. And hopefully in that moment, whether I'm talking to a billionaire, a person that's shining shoes, we all have value, right? So the people on this podcast, man, just make sure you're listening with your ears, with your eyes, and with your heart, especially this. I secured a speech in Alaska next month, Josh, because this principal who I met at a keynote earlier this year in Atlanta, Georgia for a global conference, she was almost near tears because, again, she's an educator, right? I was talking about connecting more deeply. Anyone that wants that article, I can send it to you. Just email me at chris@christopherkai.com. My last name is Kai. But the point is, when you connect more deeply with not just your ears, with your eyes and your heart, especially your heart, you'll just connect more, So just keep that in mind, everyone. Listen more, stop talking too much, and just take deeper breaths.
Yeah, I think if we can all just learn to be humble enough to the point of It doesn't matter where somebody's at. You can always learn something from somebody. Yeah, I mean, I've had great conversations with bums, dude, and I've learned so much from them. I literally have went out there and learned sales strategies from bums just asking right questions, right? And it can be powerful, right? And I love the story that you give about the shoe shining and the guy on this phone. And so often we get caught up in our own worlds and we think like we're so damn important. And we get caught up in this whole world, and it's like, dude, like, we are not that important. Like, get the hell off the phone, be interested in other people, and you will be more successful.
Yeah. And I suspect, Josh, is because, we all want to do well. We all want to make more money. We all want to have a better family life. We all want to have better health. So there's this constant, like, anticipation. I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to do more. But we forget that sometimes doing less and doing, like, with intention is even better. One quality call to a client might be better than going to 10 events. Yeah. I have a client who's an architect. He's doing fairly well for himself. I'm like, look, I'm going to give you some of my contacts to follow up with you. I sent out an email to 10 people. 3 people got back to me, but they're really high-level contacts. They're all very successful. But my point is, he could have sent out 100 emails randomly, but you're better off focusing on quality and just really diving deeper and going into who they're about. Because again, the house, which is unfortunate, Josh, is that I meet a lot of realtors, like thousands of realtors, and they're always talking about the house in terms of the aesthetics and in terms of the features, but they don't talk enough about the benefits. The benefits are like security for their family, but it's about not assuming you know what they want. You might love this beautiful view, or that person I mentioned before with a 6-year-old girl that wants to go swimming in a swimming pool, but we all have different things. Like me personally, I want complete quiet, right? So if I'm from New York City, I don't want to live on the 50, I don't want to live on like Times Square, 42nd Street, where it's so hustle and bustle. No, I want like quiet. I want like 88th Street on the upper, east side on 3rd Avenue, So what I'm saying is, if people spend the time to listen what people want, not just assume what they want, but listen to what they want, they'll be exponentially more successful.
Yep, love it, man. Alrighty, so we got the 4th point.
Yeah, so the next point is, there's a nonprofit, a charity that raised $101 million in one night. And then why is that important? So we often hear the phrase, oh, Josh, I'm so good at working the room. We're bragging about, oh, yeah, I can work the room, Chris. I got like 100 business cards. And I'm like, you know what? Working the room is a complete waste of time if you're in the wrong room. I'll say it again. Working the room is a complete waste of time if you're in the wrong room. If you have a charity function, which they raised $101 million, and if you're a real estate broker or a luxury real estate broker especially, if you're in that room, that's the right room to work. Generally speaking, there's no exact science to this, but I go to a lot of charity functions. Generally speaking, if you can raise $1 million in one night, you're going to have a lot of multimillionaires and billionaires there. And there's 1.5 million nonprofits in the country, over 10 million NGOs in the world. So why not do good and potentially meet people that you can do good with, but also build business? Like, I didn't expect the fact that when I started this homeless youth program, the only one of its kind in the world, where we teach career and life skills to homeless teenagers, I didn't expect that giving of service, I would meet a client that I ended up securing almost $100,000 from based solely on me volunteering. He has a good heart. And then the shelter itself that I have this volunteer program in, they became a client of mine too. But I went in with a clear sense of purpose. I want to teach teenagers to be strong leaders. And from that, I ended up getting these massive clients, and I was like shocked, right? So when people go to an event, if let's say, to keep the math simple, right? If a realtor wants to sell $1 million home, then they need to meet people that make at least 12 grand a month, which means they need to make at least $150,000 a year. But you want to kind of put a little buffer. So let's say you want to go to functions that people make at least $200,000, $300,000 a year. So you can already put aside so many events that don't cater to that demographic. So if you focus only on the math, as you said before, the path is in the math, Josh. That's what you said, right? I love that phrase. The path is in the math, and win the day. And so my suggestion is, know where to go, research the event going online, because the online, they literally tell you 50% of people are C-level executives. Some of them, like a techweek.com, they tell you that 38% of the people there make $100,000 and higher, right? So how many of us do the exact opposite? They go to events that are free, they're convenient, and their friend tells them. They have no understanding of the event. They have not qualified it. So when they go to this event, they get these business cards, but you can already assume that a lot of them aren't high level per se if you haven't done your research, right? So the reason why it's so important to do the research, you just save yourself so much time and money. I have a whole calendar of events that I curated called the Premier Big Game Calendar, where I curated events. But it's just about be specific, research, do your homework, and then go to the events.
So if somebody's listening to this though, and they might be thinking like, "Well, dude, maybe I can't afford to get in the event, or I can't afford to donate at the event." What about volunteering? I
Yeah.
mean, you can get those relationships. I mean, dude, you can go scrape gum off the bottom of the chairs. Like, figure something out. It's free to get in the room. You can develop relationships. What do you think about taking that angle?
Absolutely. So in my book, one of the chapters say, okay, I get that it is expensive. Some of these charities cost $300, some of them cost $5,000, right? But all these nonprofits need help. As long as you don't reach out to them the week before and say, hey, I want to help, and you reach out to them a year before. Let's say, Rihanna has a charity. It costs $5,000 to go. It's based on her grandmother. And so if you reached out to her nonprofit, and many of them have it, especially if you want to get into the celebrity world, and whether people like it or not, celebrities drive crowds and the crowds bring money. And so absolutely volunteer at nonprofits. And the gala is where you want to volunteer. The gala is where you meet the highest level of people, because the gala is usually an annual charity. So, but you want to, again, go with a sense of intention of service and definitely volunteer. I have something called lobby hugging, which is just go to the event, find out where the hotel is, and just hang out in the lobby. It's a hotel, right? So people go there. And so lobby hugging, I have a press pass program actually where I teach people how to get into events that it's insane. Like I've helped my clients get into hundreds of thousands of dollars of events. Again, email me if you're interested in that, chris@christophercott.com. But volunteering is a great way, but just make sure that you add value and you ask about their gala, because the gala is one of the best times to meet people. I was just at a gala last weekend. It's called Mercy for Animals, and surprise, surprise, it cost $300. I was invited, but Russell Simmons was there. Moby was there, who I already know Moby. But the point is, do things that you love, but focus on the more higher-end charities, because why don't you want to combine this stuff? Like I have a very multi-purpose sense of view. So volunteer is a great way, and asking your friends, can I bring a +1?
Yep, love it. All right, so step 5.
So step
Oh, we have
six,
5 or
actually,
6.
it's
Oh, shit.
80% of your success is based on follow-up. We've talked about Grant Cardone, masterful salesperson. He's always saying, 80% of your success is based on the 5th to the 12th call, 5th to the 12th follow-up. How many of us, we email someone, we text someone, we tweet someone, we Snapchat someone, we Instagram someone. There's so many mediums, and we're like, oh, I reached out to this person and he didn't get back to me, or I called this person and she didn't get back to me. Like, so what? You know how busy people are? Like, I have people, like right now, this guy's been following up with me like 7 times, and I'm like, I mean, to be honest, the guy's kind of annoying, but I respect his persistence, right? But more importantly, it's how you follow up. So I have something called avenues of follow-up. A stands for articles, V stands for videos, A stands for articles, V stands for videos, E stands for events. My newsletter, Be Inspired newsletter that I send out every week, again, go to my website, christophercott.com. I do the work for you. Instead of saying, hey, Josh, can I get a few minutes of your time? What if I say, hey, Josh, I know you want to write a book. Here's an amazing article about how you can write a book in less than 3 months. If you say, Chris, I'm looking for more inspiring events. I'm like, hey, Josh, here's an event I found out about that you might like. And lastly, videos. If let's say, you have a difficult time scaling up with your business, I'm like, yo, Josh, this video about Simon Sinek's approach to motivation, and Daniel Pink has a video online called something about how do you really motivate people, and it's really based not just on money, it's based on autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? So if I send you things that are related to your interests, articles, videos, and events, then you'll be much more inclined to get a response. And even when they didn't respond, you just keep giving that good value. I do this all the time. I have an event tonight at the Beverly Hills Hotel in Beverly Hills, and I invite people all the time. And even though they say no, they still know that Chris constantly invites people. I'm not asking for anything. So for the people on this podcast, make sure when you follow up, add them value. Even with me, right? I mean, I'm so grateful that people like what I say. But if you want me to actually return your call, just say, hey, Chris, I have this conference that I think they need a speaker. This is their budget. I think they have the budget to hire you. Or, hey, Chris, I might want to be interested in your private clients, right? But you're focusing on my interests, just like with you. Josh, hey, do you want more exposure on Inc. Radio? You can say no, but at least now you have something to do more to promote yourself, right?
Yeah, it gets so annoying. The whole, hey man, you got 5 minutes? Give me a call. Hey, got a minute? No, I don't have a minute, bro. Like,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I don't even get to see my wife and my kids. No, I'm not gonna give you a fucking minute.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
unless like you give, like, it's just the reality of it. I hate to be a prick with this, but
You're not
it
afraid.
gets frustrating because like you and I get thousands of these a day, and I'm like, no, dude. Like, oh hey, please call me. I got 5 minutes. Just want to run something by. Respect your time. I won't take up much of your time. No, dude, 5 minutes. Like, I barely get to see my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
Half the week I don't even get to see my kids. Like I leave before they're getting up. I don't even get to tuck them in at night. Like no, I don't have 5 minutes. Like
Yeah.
you guys that are watching this, man, listen to Chris because you need to come from an outside angle, dude. And I don't even look at myself as like that big of a cat. There's dudes, obviously way bigger than me, but you're just going to get ignored unless you learn to be strategic about it.
Yeah. And I want to pound this point down. Like I said, Josh, I know you're a busy guy, even though we're friends, but still, I value your time, right? So I say, hey, Josh, I was just on this Inc. radio show. They're like over 20 plus radio. It's a cool show to be on. Do you want to be on it, right? So again, I want to always add value to you. Like I'm not trying to get anything from you, but that's the whole thing. Like keep giving, keep giving, keep giving. And so with people, when they say I only have 5 minutes, in their mind they're thinking, well, Chris, it's only 5 minutes. I'm like, no, it's not just 5 minutes because again, if someone's like, Chris, can you introduce me to Elon Musk? I'm like, no. Like, it takes time to vet the person. It takes time to figure out who they are. So for all the people that are on this podcast saying, oh, it's only 5 minutes, like, no. Switch your script around, burn away that script and say, if there's 1,000 people, how do you be that one person that stands out? So if you already know that Josh would probably want to build his real estate business, and if you know buyers or sellers, well, guess what? Josh might be interested, and that's what I did too. I had someone that might have wanted to buy or sell, whatever. I'm like, hey, Josh, you might be interested in this, right? And then for me, I'm a speaker. I'm building on my own online business, so focus on again. Josh is interested in my interest. Well, guess what? We're in this position which we built over time, and just always add value because without that, you're gonna get ignored over and over again. It's so frustrating. Knock your head against the wall every day, every week, every month, thinking, how can I be more successful? All you need to do is, how can I give to Josh? How can I give to Chris? Because again, if you're asking for a favor, give something first. Law of reciprocity. This is based on science. A guy named Robert Cialdini, he has this amazing book. I think it's called Persuasion online. It's online too. You can email me for that too. But it's like 6 different things on persuasion. And again, going back to acronyms, Chris loves SCARS. Chris stands for consistency. Have a consistent way to follow up, and it could be for follow up or even pitching or prospecting or appointments. Likability. Jude, Josh, you're a likable guy. You have this great vibe. You're very loving. You're very caring. You're very loyal. And then the last 4 is scarcity. Make sure that something that you need now. And then the last 3 are consensus. If other people are hiring me to speak, then there has to be something about Chris Kai that people want to speak. And the last 2 are reciprocity, meaning give first, and then the last S, actually it's authority. Have a sense of authority when you're talking to people, because if not, why should they trust you?
Yep, love it, man. Couldn't agree more, dude. Love it. All right, what's the next point?
So the last point, actually, though I mentioned this briefly about the whole pathos part when you're being a speaker, it's the stories. Stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. Stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. I shared this in the last podcast, and I do this often because I want people to know. They might look at me as like, man, Josh, look at this Chris Kai guy. He networks with billionaires. He goes around the world. And you, Josh, again, you have this multi-million-dollar business. You have these phenomenal mentors. You have this amazing, business you're building out. They might think, well, I can't get there. So that's why it's so important to know, like, my story is like, I was talking too much in school, so I got punished. I was labeled as having a reading disability, so now I thought I was stupid. And lastly, I was really short. And so my self-esteem was like just plummeting. And so what I see sometimes is that we have all these scars in our past, and we allow these scars of emotional, physical, spiritual, mental scars in the past to dictate our future success. And it's really unfortunate because we all have this burden, right? So I always share this story about myself where, look, I was perceived as stupid, I couldn't shut up, and I was short. But yet, thankfully, I had an uncle named Uncle Ding who believed in me and had other people that I looked up to over time. But my Uncle Ding was the main guy that said, you know what, Chris, you're smart. I'm going to hire you in my uncle's my insurance company when I'm 12. And he created that foundation. So the people on this podcast know how you share your story. And to be honest, without the low notes, the high notes don't matter. Without the low notes, the high notes don't matter. And I heard that from Tom Shadyac, who has made over $2 billion from Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty, Evan Almighty. And he said it best. Without the low notes, the high notes don't matter. And meaning, like, if you don't have dun 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 dun, dun, you know, so in your life, you have to be able to share your story, because without that, people won't remember you. Because if you don't do the stuff I'm encouraging you to do, you'll go to events, you get a stack of business cards, like literally a stack of business cards. You look through these business cards, Daniel Goleman, Young Denick, Valencia, like you'll be like, who are these people? You're going to literally get lost in the crowd if you don't share your story. But more importantly, you don't understand their story and listen to their stories. So stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. Make sure you have an open mind. And that's pretty much the 7 steps. To kind of recap, open network is the #1 best indicator for your career success. Having a great mindset, not just the fixed mindset, fixed mindset as opposed growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset. If you want to communicate better, focus on the facts and figures of your industry and your experience, and also your pathos, the emotional impact. If you want to follow up, it's based on the 5th to the 12th call, 80% more success. 4 happy chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and serotonin, relative to really having that physiological connection. And then last 2 is the $101 million charity that raised in one night. Work the right room. And the last one is share your story. My story isn't a guy that grew up with a lot of money. My story isn't a guy that grew up with a lot of connections. My story is about my mom was a school teacher in New York City. My dad was a case manager, and my mom would, give me hand-me-down clothes. She would make these hamburgers, and she didn't know what hamburger buns were, so she made my hamburgers with Wonder Bread. And so I'd go to school every day, have a brown paper bag, take out my hamburger lunch from the Ziploc bag, and I still remember to this day sinking my hands, my little tiny fingers, into the white Wonder Bread, the soggy Wonder Bread, and chowing down onto this hockey puck hard burger. And that's my upbringing. Now, so I share this with our guests because, you too, Josh, I know your personal story. We didn't just get here as a matter of fact. We didn't have the silver spoon. It was about hustle. It was about grit. It was about consistency. It was about you and your statement that I always love: win the day, win the day. And that's pretty much a summary of the 7 networking strategies of success. People want to ask questions, please feel free to email me at chris@christopherkai.com. My last name is Kai.
Yeah, dude. You know what I love about success, bro, is none of this stuff is really hard. Right? Like you got the steps laid out. You just got to do it. You got to take action. And you and I talk about this all the time, but just that mindset. 90% of success is up here. It's like taking action on those things. I'll hear people like, "Oh, I'm not going to give my time for free. Yeah. I don't work for." I'm like, don't even get in the game then. Like, if you're not willing to do these things and go out there and donate your time and build it, which it does take time, like you probably just go work for me and Chris. And I don't mean that in an arrogant, cocky way, but it's the truth. I was interviewed the other day on a podcast, like what does it really take to become a successful entrepreneur? I'm like, dude, like, you got to be willing to, you got to be willing to do some crazy shit. You got to be willing to outwork everybody, right? You got to be willing to risk losing it every single day. You got to be willing to put in that work. I know for me, and this is something that you and I have talked about, but speaking, I've spoken for years, never being paid a penny. I probably have close to $200,000 personally invested to go speak around the country, to give knowledge to other people on my own dime, right? With the faith that eventually that stuff will pay back. So people gotta number one, take action on this. You know it. Now you got to go out there and take action. Why do you think so many people don't take action? Do you think it's because they don't really want it?
I think they all want it. They're just not willing to do what they want. Like, it's so easy to sit on our ass and just watch TV, right? That's why I don't have a TV. Now that I don't have a TV, it's so easy to just look on Snapchat and look on Facebook, right? So the most important thing really I can share is like it's about habits and the people you surround yourself with, right? You and I are both pretty fit, right? But it's by design. Like anytime I have a chance to walk, I'm not gonna walk on the escalator, I'm gonna walk on the stairs. And anytime I have a chance to walk upstairs, I'll walk upstairs as opposed to taking the elevator. Instead of parking closest to the door where it takes forever to get to, why not park the furthest from the door? Right? So I'm making conscious choices to be healthy, whereas most people they make excuses. Well, but Chris, I have back problems. Shut up. Like, I don't want to be insensitive, but I just hear too many excuses, and so the habits aren't there, and then the people they surround themselves with. That's why like I will cut people out. I say this all the time. I'll give you one chance, two chance, possibly, but if you're whining about things, I'm not going to hear it. Like last night, I went to visit a friend in the hospital, and in that case, she had an ulcer, so like I'm going to go there because I want to support her, right? But that's like a real, actual thing. She almost died. But most of us, we just have in our mind, going back to what you're saying, Josh, about how we think we're so important, you know, push those important thoughts aside and just keep it simple. If you want to be more successful as a realtor, hang out with Josh more, not necessarily in person because he's kind of busy, but like watch every single podcast. Pick out what you can learn from his podcast, his newsletters, his blogs, his speeches. And this is the thing, Josh. We gave a free speech last week, right? You have all these people that are on your list. That room, was pretty packed, but like that should have been like packed to the T. But again, it's a free speech. Oh, it's free, so maybe I don't need it. Oh, I'm busy. Well, too bad. Now you lost your chance, right? If I charge $20,000, now you lost that. If we just that room alone, that's like $100,000 worth of value, and we gave that for free. And so they just missed out on $100,000 worth of value. Like, oh wow, oops. So my thing is like whether you listen to a Warren Buffett or Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, the best and easiest way, and my quote is, the best way to change your life is to change your relationships. And so the why, Josh, is that they consistently choose to surround themselves with people that aren't helping them, including their husband, their wife, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, their best friends. No one ever said you're married to your friends. And frankly, even if you're married to the person, you're like, oh, it's not that easy, Chris. No, the solution is always easy. It's the outcome and the consequences that's hard, right? So am I encouraging people to break their marriages up? Yeah, frankly, I am. Because I just see that we have one life. And if you choose to marry someone or choose to be with someone, well, that's your choice. It's like, no, Chris, it's not that simple. Look, man, the solution is always simple. It's the outcome that you're not willing to deal with. And unfortunately, that's the biggest thing. The habits that we don't form and the people we surround ourselves with. If you just start surrounding yourself with people that are healthier than you, more intelligent than you, more ambitious than you, you will move that way, as Warren Buffett say. You're bound. Like every time I talk to you, Josh, I'm amped up. I'm excited. I'm picking points, and so people choose not to. And then they go, okay, well, what's the next step, Chris? Well, next step is subscribe to your, YouTube channel, subscribe to mine, and start filling your world, and you'll just be that much more successful.
Yep, love it, man. Yeah, and then we talk about that free event that we did last week before?
Thursday, the week ago.
So yeah, I lose track of shit. Sometimes I forget what year I'm in. But there are certain people, like there's a lot of local people that maybe didn't show up. That yeah, you're right. They're like, oh, dude, can I go take you to coffee? Oh, something came up, but they don't even take the effort to get there. But then there's people that flew in from
Exactly.
And those are people, and you and I both had conversations. That dude, that's a dude we won't forget. That is a dude that he took time out of his busy life to fly down from Canada, book a hotel, spend thousands of dollars to come to our event, but went out of his way, of course, to share his story that he came down here with both you and I, and that's a dude that you and I would both give time to.
Yeah, and again, Josh, imagine it sounds kind of pompous, but imagine we said, would you throw away $100,000? Of course, people would say no, right? But they really did, because if we add up all our speaking fees, that's $100,000 of value right there that we gave for free. And then that's kind of unfortunately, when you do things of service, people are immediately cynical. But again, if I'm speaking at Berkshire Hathaway, if I'm speaking in Zurich, it's like we've amassed the success, so therefore we qualify and warrant this fee. But unfortunately, people don't see value in that, and that's kind of like the unfortunate thing. Like when I read my first book about like the personal development world or leadership, it was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. I read that about 20 years ago, and it shocked me because that's the first time in my life that I read this type of book, and I'm like, man, All the knowledge is there. Whether you want to be a realtor, whether you want to be a millionaire, whether you want to travel the world, why isn't everyone successful? And it's because they don't take action. Someone's going to listen to this podcast right now. They're maybe eating their sandwich, they may be watching TV, they may be multitasking, and then after they get off this podcast, yeah, it sounded good, I'm feeling motivated, and they do nothing different. They keep going around the same circle over and over, and then they get frustrated. And then when they ask me for my time, I say, here's a $500 product, which they don't invest in, so I don't have the money. I'm like, well, too bad, you won't be successful ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's annoying, man. I'll give people reach out. Oh man, can I have a month? But they won't even invest.
Or even like $20,
an affordable coaching product.
Yeah, it's just
So what you're saying is you just want free shit, like freeloader, get out of here. You're gonna fail anyway. Get the hell out. And I hate, again. I keep going back to being a dick, but it's just the reality of it. Like, dude, I literally at one point. Wanted to a certain coaching product so bad that I couldn't afford it. It was very high level. I had to sell a Rolex. Right? It took me a lot of years to go out there and buy that, and I wanted it, and it was painful, but I wanted the relationship and wanted the knowledge more, that I was willing to make that sacrifice. That took me, that was like that thing, if I hit this level of income, I'm going to treat myself to this gift, and I hawked it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I wanted it so bad.
And Josh, what people don't also realize is that it's not just the $500 you're spending or $1,000 you're spending, it's the access point to us. So let's say someone bought my program last year in June or July. This year I still know her, so I'll comp my speaking fees for her because I want her to succeed too. So it's not just I don't know if I want to spend $1,000 on your program, Josh, or $500 on my program, or whatever it might be. It's like they don't understand that it's about access. When someone pays $10,000, it's not even what you learn, it's the access you get in the room. And so they're kind of thinking, unfortunately, too myopic. They're thinking too transactional. It's like, oh, I don't have the money. Like, again, you're never going to have the money if you have that mindset. You have to think more abundance and say, I'm going to make an investment. I do, you do. And really, it comes down to are you going to invest your time or money? When I first started my speaking career, I drove from New York City as I was driving cross country to speak at Ball State University. It was like 11 hours of driving, 650 miles to speak for free. And people say, well, why'd you do that, Chris? Well, because I wanted to build up my repertoire. I wanted to go speak more at colleges. But when you said before, why do people not succeed, Chris? You're like, well, because who's going to drive 11 hours straight, 650 miles to give a free speech, right? So every successful entrepreneur I've ever seen in my life, they all have to hustle. And unfortunately, I had this one client. I mean, this kind of sounds bad, but it's like, this person kept saying, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, don't hire me as a coach. Because if you're asking me for advice, and you don't do anything, they expect like a magic wand sometimes, Josh. You ever get that sometimes?
All the time. All the time. You got to do the work, dude. Yep. No, I love it, man. Couldn't agree more, brother. All right, man. Well, I know you got to get rolling. I got to jam as well. Got to meet another podcast here in a few minutes that we got to get going on. But, man, this has been awesome. You guys, make sure we're going to have links below to, of course, Chris's email, how to reach him, his websites. He offered a lot to you today, right? So, I mean, if you have questions about what he's talking about, we'll also have a link to his last podcast there. Make sure you click those. Make sure you check those. And this goes to what Chris and I were just talking about heavily. But I end every podcast with this, though. Information without implementation is just the start of delusion. It's not information that's power. It's taking that information, taking action on it that creates power in your world. So if you're watching these podcasts and you're doing nothing with, I always call it mental masturbation. That's all you're doing. You're just playing with yourself, dude. Like, you got to quit masturbating, man. Quit playing with yourself, right? You got to take action on that information that creates power. So as always, Chris is always dropping massive knowledge. Take something that you learned today. I mean, he just gave you gold. I mean, this dude right here is in the rooms with the Clintons, Elon Musk. I mean, just some of the most powerful people on the planet by following the strategies that he's just giving you guys for free today. So take action. And Chris, man, it's always an honor, brother. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here, dude.
Awesome, Josh. Have a great day. Win the day.
That's what it's about, baby. All right, you guys, we will see you next time.
Bye, Josh. Bye, everyone.